The Midnight Hour Podcast, Episode 2, Echoes of the Mirror, written by Ella Noire. Welcome to the Midnight Hour, where the darkest secrets and forgotten fears come alive as the clock strikes 12. In tonight's episode, Echoes of the Mirror, Sophie Bennett returns to her grandmother's home, where she learns that some legacies come with a price, one paid in silence, in shadows, and always in the midnight hour. Sophie hadn't been back to the house since her grandmother's funeral. As a child, it had been her sanctuary, especially after her parents died. Her grandmother had taken her in, a warm, loving presence who had soothed her grief. But as the years passed, that warmth faded. The love her grandmother once showered on her turned into coldness and fear, especially as midnight approached. The mirror at the end of the hallway had always been a source of curiosity. Its massive, gilded frame, twisting with ornate vines, seemed out of place in the otherwise modest home. Her grandmother had warned her away from it, always making sure she never touched it. She even had a sort of morbid lullaby about it, which still sent a shiver down Sophie's spine. Beware the glass, for it will see what was and what will be. Sophie had never understood. She always assumed her grandmother had grown cold because she reminded her of her mother, whose death had broken the old woman's heart. But standing in the hallway now, with the mirror glinting faintly in the dim light, Sophie felt the weight of something she hadn't before. It wasn't grief, it was fear. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Sophie lay awake, restless. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. The old house creaked and groaned, but something about tonight felt different. The air felt charged, heavy. Suddenly, the clock began to chime, midnight's haunting notes. Sophie felt a pull, something drawing her toward the mirror. The low hum that filled the air intensified with each chime. As she approached the mirror, its surface rippled, distorting her reflection. For a brief moment, she saw her mother's face staring back at her, hollow-eyed, trapped in the glass. She gasped and stumbled backward. The reflection was no longer just hers. She remembered an old leather-bound diary of her grandmother's she had found earlier in the day. Frantic, Sophie ran to her grandmother's room, tearing through old drawers until she found it. Flipping through its pages, her hands trembled as she read, "The mirror is a curse. It took her mother. It will take her too if I don't keep her away. Every night at the midnight hour, the mirror shows me what it will do to Sophie if she stays too long. I must push her away. I must protect her from the curse. The mirror claims souls, trapping them inside, waiting for midnight to take more. The curse, it has to end with me. Sophie can't come back. I miss her so. I have to keep reminding myself I am doing this for her. Once she hears it whisper her name, she can never leave. She will be marked. She will carry the curse." Her grandmother hadn't distanced herself out of grief. She had done it to save Sophie from the mirror. It had already taken her mother. Sophie was next. Sophie's eyes darted toward the hallway where the mirror stood glowing faintly in the darkness. The tapping grew louder. She approached it slowly, knowing what she would see. As she stood before the glass, her reflection warped once again. Her mother, her grandmother, their hollow faces trapped behind the glass. Sophie. The voice was faint, but it was there. The mirror was calling her. At that moment, she understood. The mirror had passed its curse on to her. At every midnight hour, it would awaken, hungering for another soul. But Sophie refused to feed it any longer, even if it meant being alone. And now she was the keeper. Her grandmother had sacrificed her own happiness to keep Sophie safe, to guard the mirror's power. But now that she was gone, it was Sophie's turn to bear the burden. Alone midnight, the hour when time itself stands still, when the world is suspended between night and day. For Sophie Bennett, midnight is no longer just an hour, it's a curse. With each passing night, the mirror calls to her, demanding its due. And now, as the new keeper, Sophie must guard it from claiming more lives. But how long before the mirror's hunger becomes too great? Beware the mirror, especially when the clock strikes 12, for in the midnight hour, nothing is ever what it seems. Welcome to the Midnight Hour.